I think that's a good example, especially if you're trying to, you know, explain this to someone who doesn't understand what, what the blockchain is. And I myself, I'm not an expert in dealing with cryptocurrency. I know enough about it as far as, you know, the mining process, the part of, trying to figure out where you move and things like that. But as far as the intricate details where you can really start monetizing, I think similar in explaining this is helpful. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, especially in Tony and I share the same view, I'm totally against the Fed.
Yep.
So anyone that has that same mindset should be open to another way, regardless if you are into it or not. Mm-hmm. Be at least open to hear what it's totally about, or at least experiment with it. If you lose, so what? If you're doing stocks is gambling.
Yeah.
Like, you just think of it like, okay, I threw this away. If I lost it, it's gone.
Yep.
Go ahead. Just to explain blockchain a little bit more in depth too, it's a peer-to-peer network of people being able to be connected in ways that we've never been connected before. And another benefit that comes from that is efficiencies. So if you don't have to go through a middleman, it's actually called the disintermediary when you're cutting out a middleman. And what do middlemen do? They usually cost money, right? So if you're trying to send a wire transfer from here to South America, you might have to send it to, San Diego and then somewhere in Mexico, and then it's going to go multiple places. And each time it does that, it's going to cost a fee.
They're all taking their cut.
They're all taking their cut for providing that service. So Bitcoin is an example. Using the Bitcoin blockchain for a currency is an example of being able to cut out a middleman, and it saves a lot of money that way. So it absolutely has.
Closer.
It absolutely has the revolutionary aspect as well as when the anti-Fed Bitcoin is a more secure store of value than the dollar is. Certainly, that's something we talk about a lot in all of our social medias and every time we talk to people publicly. But blockchain offers a lot of efficiencies separate from what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin was just the first blockchain, and that's why people are so excited about it, because it defined this new territory that we've never seen before. That's going to benefit us in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I think that as cryptocurrency grows from its infancy and becomes more popular, I think that people need more some kind of peace with understanding. First of all, understanding it, and also the peace of mind that that the value will hold. I've invested a lot of my money into a company who had nothing to do with cryptocurrency, and come to find that they because of all the hype and everything that started this time last year, they started getting into the mining, and that's another aspect of cryptocurrency. And as they got into it, they invested a lot of money.
Is secure or?
Well, people want security. They want to feel like
it's the most secure thing I've ever seen in my entire life. One of the reasons why, it's kind of, if you guys want to jump in anytime.
We'd agree with that statement.
Immutable assets are huge when it comes to like cryptocurrencies, because you have to realize, and I don't know exactly where this. I know in a lot of Latin American countries, my own grandmother, for instance, and my wife's grandmother as well, lost pieces of land because of the fact that nothing was immutable. Like the government came in. It doesn't matter. You could have a piece of paper that says, I own this land. Yeah. But the government can just say, actually, we have a different piece of paper that says we own it.
It's confiscatable.
Right.
Yeah. So, that's why you pay property.
Domain in a situation.
You pay property taxes if you stop paying your property tax. Yeah. It's.
Do you feel that that we're headed for a crash then? Is it money going to become so devalued that it's not worth?
We've had a lot of crashes.
Yeah.
The Federal Reserve is great. Central banks are great at creating crashes, because when they do that, everything shuffles, and the people who know the crash is going to come, they make out really well from that crash. So there's going to be another crash. You keep printing money, and it's going to continue to be devalued.
Well, so every new dollar that is printed devalues every other dollar already in existence. So when a new dollar comes out, the dollar in your bank account goes down in value. and there's this inflation rate that's acceptable of 1 to 2% per year. So, you know, for some reason we find that acceptable because of the way our economy is built, but it's actually closer to 5%. People say it's 5% inflation rate is actually what that is. And what that means just is that every 15 years, the money in your savings account loses half of its purchasing power.
So do you feel like it's a popularity when it comes to saying, hey, you know, money is more valuable than crypto, or is it just people don't know about it? I mean, how would you?
Yeah, people don't know the problem.
Yeah.
How many people, how many people know that the Federal Reserve, how many people know the Federal Reserve isn't federal and it doesn't have any reserves? How many people know that?
That's true.
Nobody knows that. It's a small group of people who were unelected by the American public that control monetary policy. And if you want to break it down, money is just a store of our time. We trade our time. We trade 40 hours a week or whatever, you're working for these pieces of paper. And if a small group of people are actively in control and decide to devalue those pieces of paper, they're devaluing your life. So it disincentivizes saving. It disincentivizes your life.
Well, they say that right now, let's say if you had $1 million today, your $1 million today will not be worth, let's say by the time you retire 30 years from now, $1 million. With inflation changing and things costing more,
Yep.
And the devalue of your money, you're going to be almost left with nothing. So it's, investments, and that's another thing. People invest their money hoping to gain it or keep it as current to the value that, by the time they retire, they'll have something to fall back on, because and a lot of people, that's why they put their money in their, into their house, try to pay off their house so they can have their house because they know the value of their home is going to go up, into stocks, but stocks and putting it into 401ks, IRAs and things, it is risky because if there is a crash, you're going to lose the value that is gained.
Man, 98% in 100 years is risky.
Yes.
That's way riskier than anything else,
Yeah, and hopefully, if crypto can gain popularity enough to put people's mind at ease so they can, or open their mind to learn more about it, get familiar with it, and I think that would be good. But everybody's looking for a guarantee, I think, and that's another thing too, because when I bought my shares of stock in this company, I had no idea they were going into mining. And then they went into mining, and then all of a sudden Bitcoin went back down, and then now, I got out of it, and broke even, but I didn't lose like other people might have lost. So that's one thing you have to be careful.
Dang, it's all about I don't know. I'm not into like stocks like you at all, but man, to me personally, I feel like I can see trends. Like especially with social media and things like that,
Technology.
and then like with technology and like AI and like everything that's there, and that's why I actually want to dip in Ethereum, because that's gonna be oh my gosh, like okay, sorry, man, I'm getting too excited, but I was just like, man, I'm telling you, like imagine this, okay, so you're talking about the fact of like, let's say for instance we have things like it's a true sharing economy, like it really is, like we no longer have to like worry about it. It's almost like, I don't want to say that we're sharing a business together, but let's just say for instance something like Airbnb and like Uber, you know what I mean? Like I don't think people realize, they're like, oh yeah, see what they do, they create jobs for people, and I'm thinking to myself, not really. Like could you imagine if like, let's say for instance Uber was like each person that like got a ride in certain areas, and like it's hard to explain with like Ethereum on how they were able to share that, right? But they literally wouldn't like, gosh, do you know how to explain that? Like with a true share economy, when it has to do with like the blockchain.
I'm not quite sure what you're.
Do you mean by like cutting out a middleman? So you're
Yes, because
you're basically making something like Airbnb.
You would make all the money, like
Yeah.
versus it would be a platform that's built just for you,
from the driver to the passenger without Uber in the middle.
without Uber in the middle.
Or
Yeah.
from the person who's renting the room to the person who's providing the room without Airbnb in the
Exactly.
middle.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
think about what a large cut Airbnb and Uber are taking from the person actually providing the service. And that's definitely, think about how much money these middlemen take from every aspect of our lives. And, and that's government aside and how we're taxed in 1,000 different ways. But middlemen also take these cuts and these shares in all these different places. And if even a few of those could become more efficient, that's more money in all of our pockets, right? And what does that mean? It means maybe we get to work a little bit less, or maybe we get to have a little bit better lifestyle. So there's a lot of benefits that can come from creating more efficiencies.
True. I mean, even because having my family that lives in Mexico, like when my mother or my grandmother has to wire money over there, they take like 10-12% of the money.
It costs like $50.
Like the Western Union,
Yeah, what HAG is Western Union.
Yeah.
They take that much. With the blockchain, you wouldn't have to do that. Something like Ethereum would build in smart contracts and build in code that would automatically have everything preset, and it would find the closest local teller, and she would get her money like that. Like, it does so much. And what I meant by what I see when I see trends, I only see technology growing. I only see things only getting easier for us. And when it comes to blockchain, especially the fact that Amazon, they had the special on smart refrigerators, and somebody had made a joke, well, a lot of the smart refrigerators are going to actually start running off blockchain. And like when you run out of certain things, a drone's going to actually send like food to your home. You realize with Ethereum, everybody gains rewards on that. Like you would get a reward. I mean, even in that aspect, even though it'd be a little more centralized because Amazon would be the middleman, they would still get a reward from it. Everybody would still get something out of the deal.
And if they're saving money, if Amazon's able to provide the service to you cheaper, then they're not going to have to charge you as much for those goods that you're purchasing. And then once again, more money in your pocket.
No, I was just going to say, Sean, you were talking about, kind of more people wanting the peace of mind. I think before we can even get to the peace of mind, I think for the majority, people need to be more educated just on cryptocurrency in general. I think that's the biggest hurdle. You're not going to convince someone who doesn't know anything about cryptocurrency to hop onto that just because they watch a podcast or have a conversation. They literally need to be educated about that function of the money that they actually think they have value in now. That's the part that they have to start thinking about.
That's the next podcast. Perfect.
Yeah.
We spoke to like 70 high school seniors a couple weeks back, and it was an economics class. Okay. And the teacher invited us in, and I don't think she knew what,
what
we
she
were
didn't know what she was
coming in
getting
for,
into.
right? She had no idea. Because the whole first part of our presentation was why the value of the dollar is going down, why the dollar is no longer hard money and a good store of value. And so we demonstrated where the dollar is at in real time, and then we talked about, well, here's where Bitcoin's at, and here's where Bitcoin could be headed. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. People don't understand. I mean, this class of students sitting here learning economics every day, they had no idea that the dollar had lost 98% of its purchasing power.
I think that was amazing. How long ago did you do that?
Like a couple weeks ago.
And I think that's very amazing because I think all of us, everyone in this room has been in high school and has completed high school. High school and even parts, I've gone to college, don't teach you how to make money. Yeah. They teach you how to get a job.
Absolutely. And
there's a big difference between those two things. And I think something what you guys just did, whoever those students were, their eyes, at least a good percentage of them, someone's eyes are going to be open to that fact. That what they've been learning in school is basically to obtain something that you got to put in time, as you talked about, to earn this piece of paper or this value that you say that I need to buy what I want.
That's why we thought it was so important to share that message with people who are like 17 years old, because you're right, they're looking down that path of being an employee. You're right, that's what they're getting taught in school. That's what they're going to get in a bunch of college debt for, to become an employee. And so we just wanted to give them this different perspective of the dollar that you're going to go get in a lot of debt and work really hard to earn is going to continue to lose value. Because I don't know, I'm sure you guys feel it. Like, I look at my grandparents' generation and they're retired and they're having some pretty nice cruises and living life. I look at my parents' generation, it's a little bit harder for them than it is for my grandparents.
And it's going to be harder for us.
And then I look at our generation and I'm thinking, we're getting squeezed. This is harder than it's ever been. And a lot of people don't like to talk about that because there's kind of this level of denial that people don't want to realize how hard it's gotten. But why do you think people tease millennials for living in their parents' basements and stuff? Because the value of the dollar has gone down so much. I had a job at a county, $17 an hour. Do you know what $17 an hour is after you work 40 hours a week? less than $2,000 after all the benefits. That is poverty level. How is one person supposed to pay rent and live on $2,000 a month when the price of groceries and every insurance in your car is so much more than that? We're being squeezed, and so we need an alternative, and there's never ever been one before.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I think the function. I think at the end of the day, I think we kind of have an agreement. You know, the system is broken, and we kind of have to understand the fact that it doesn't seem like we're going to be able to fix the system. So why don't create something or go online with something that's going to work for you, which could be cryptocurrency for a lot of people, because like you said, making that type of money, you shouldn't be at poverty level, or you shouldn't be at a level where you're so squeezed or you're so pinched that you cannot sustain a suitable life for yourself.
And I went to college for that job, right? Got a degree for that job.
And that's the difference. And you said that comparison is real funny. You know, like our grandparents were much better off. The industry was different. You know, it's an industrial industry, but at the end of the day, you know, that same time, our grandparents, a lot of things outsourcing started to come into play. And then you start talking about deregulation when it deals with outsourcing of those jobs, because usually, like a lot of those factory jobs, a lot of those industrial jobs that were here in the United States were in the communities that they lived. So number one, they didn't have to travel as far to go to work. All those jobs provided pensions and things like that, and retirements that probably paid them about 80 to 85% of their pay as they retired. So they were a lot more better off. But then once the government gets involved, corporations take over, the corporatocracy takes over, and they're trying to monetize their profits to the highest amount, trying to increase it to the highest amount. So they outsource to get it for a lot more. Now those jobs aren't here. Now we're stuck with it. So like our parents, they kind of were, they kind of like squeaked by it a little bit, like they just made it. But for us, it's gonna be hard, especially when and I'm speaking in general, 60 years old and 70 years old. Like that's gonna be a problem.